Hello cowboys and cowgirls, my name is Blackjack and I'm here on behalf of the SASS Range Officer Committee to present to you a new idea for a technique for drawing and holstering revolvers. Thank you all for tuning in and listening to this video. I know there's probably things you would rather be doing right now than to listen to me drone on about muzzle angles and holsters for 25 minutes. But it's something that we as the committee feel is very important. We'd like to get the information out there to our shooters so you could give the feedback to your territorial governor so he or she can bring their votes to the summit in December. So let me give you a little background information as to why we are promoting this idea in SASS. Currently, the R01 materials discuss canted holsters and the required method of drawing and holstering from them to ensure the 170-degree plane is never broken with the muzzle of a revolver. In essence, what the rules say that if you wear a cross draw or canted holster in such a way that when drawing you would break the 170-degree cone, you must twist your body and bring the alignment of the holster and the muzzle into the downranged plane before you draw or holster. Well, this is true for those folks wearing their cross draws off to the side of their bodies or where the muzzle actually points away from the firing line. However, for those folks wearing their cross draws towards the center of their bodies and maintaining a 1 foot forward stance, there is no requirement to twist or do the dance, as some call it, as their muzzles and holsters are already aligned in the downrange direction. Simply stated, how you wear your holster and how you stand will largely dictate whether or not you have to twist or do the dance, as some people say, while drawing and holstering from your canted holster. The rules also state that we must afford shooters wearing straight hang holsters the opportunity to draw and holster their revolvers without penalty. Hence, we have the exception for muzzles maintaining pure vertical. We allow this exception to the 170-degree rule for holstering and drawing. It's an obvious and necessary exception, or you'd never be able to draw or holster your revolver from a straight hang holster. So, to follow on in this idea, we already have an accepted safety concept or safety zone around our feet by virtue of the fact that we are maintaining our muzzles directly in the vertical, pointing into the dirt. Now this presents a need to define this safety zone, not only for straight hang holsters, but for all holsters, with the goal of correcting this safety issue for all shooters. So you might say, what's the problem with the current situation? Well, that is a good question. Many of you might be thinking, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And generally I agree with that. However, we have identified a couple of problems across the shooting community at large. This is not only a canted holster problem, or a cross-draw holster problem, or a straight hang holster problem. This is an all holster problem that we are trying to address. So what are these problems? First, we have an issue with enforcement in the community in general, which I'm sure many of you will agree with me. The 30-degree maximum holster angle rule for holsters is one that seems to have been given little consideration and is only now being positively enforced at some matches. Secondly, and more importantly, given the variation between how holsters are worn from shooter to shooter, there exists many inconsistencies in how the rules are being applied from shooter to shooter. Simply stated, we have ROs giving penalties on the firing line to shooters for not twisting when there is no requirement to twist, and not giving penalties to shooters that don't twist in cases where they are required to twist. These inconsistencies and incorrect applications of the rules are being observed in the community at large and cause a great deal of frustration for our shooters. Now, if you're thinking this is purely a canted holster problem or a cross-draw problem, well, that's not quite true. Some of our shooters that have straight hang holsters sometimes break the 170 and it's not even recognized by the RO. I'm talking about the occasions where a shooter might be in a rush, leaning forward into the firing line, drawing their revolver out of a straight hang holster. What can sometimes happen is their muzzles are actually pointing rearward towards the posse. And this is sometimes not recognized as a 170-degree infraction when actually it is, and penalties are not being awarded in this case. Let me give you a little visual explanation of these situations. Folks, now I just want to briefly show you what we talked about with the problems on the firing line. As you can see, I'm wearing a cross-draw holster. I personally wear it towards the center of my body, and I stand with my left foot forward. So naturally, my muzzle is aligned towards the downrange direction. So there is no need for a shooter that wears their holsters like this and stands 1 foot forward to turn, because I've already turned by virtue of my stance and the way I'm wearing my holster in the downrange direction. The problem we're seeing on the firing line is some people are wearing their holsters like this, shooting this way, and they're not turning to get that muzzle in the downrange direction. And the problems we are seeing is the ROs are not calling breaking of the 170, which of course will happen. Conversely, we are seeing some people being called for penalties when they're standing like this, like I showed you, and there's no reason to twist. And those people are still being called as penalties, so that's part of the problem. The other part of the problem is, even as we see with straight hang holsters, it doesn't stop with canted holsters. On occasion, a straight hang shooter using a straight hang holster will draw their revolver leaning into the shot and pull forward instead of straight up. How many people really go straight up and then up? If you really think about it, not many. There's a tendency to pull and lean forward into your shot like this. And as you do that, which way is that revolver pointed? It's pointed back towards the posse and the RO. Okay folks, now we wanted to just show you there are some people out there that are wearing two strong-sided holsters but canted towards the middle. And one might not think that that's a problem, but the canted holster and the breaking of the 170 is an issue for them as well. We have to encompass this concept for those people wearing those kinds of holsters as well. As you can see, if I'm wearing a strong-sided holster and I'm wearing it slightly to the side but canted in the middle, you might not think that that's a canted holster, and yet I may be able to draw currently in this direction, moving that way with a firing line behind me. So it can be an issue for strong-sided canted inward holsters as well. So what's the solution or the fix? Well, now enter the idea for a simple and consistent way of drawing and holstering. But before we move on to the concept itself, let me just give you a little information as to the attributes of this new concept that we considered. First, it should comply with current safety procedures and limits, and must respect safe muzzle direction as a priority at all times. Second, the method should be simple, making it easily monitored by range officers and easily performed by the shooter. Muzzle angles and direction limits must be easily recognized and maintained. Complicated procedures are hard to follow for everyone. Third, it should be something similar to what the shooting community already knows and does. Small incremental changes are always more easily adapted. Having considered these conceptual requirements, the idea of a safety cone, or circle of safety as we like to call it, is born. And this concept is not unlike the idea that we already employ, which is the exception to the 170-degree rule when drawing and holstering from a straight hang holster. We already accept that the area around our feet, as long as the muzzle is pointed straight into the dirt, straight in the vertical, is an acceptable area to have those muzzles pointed. It's already an acceptable safety zone. So now that we accept this, why not formally define this safety zone and make it employable by shooters who wear all kinds of holsters?